Hey guys, it's Doug218 and I am joined by
Fort Towers Film.
And welcome to Coffee and Chat. Today's episode we thought we'd talk about the Tokyo Olympics.
Right.
And
It's just started
and there has been a lot of protests about this. And our question is
specifically in Japan.
In Japan, because they're noticing a rise in case counts.
Right.
And people have been protesting, saying it should be canceled. You know, now is not the time while we're going through yet another wave of cases.
Yeah.
So my question is, where do you stand on this?
Well, see, I guess each country, it's different because they're in different places.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reasoning Japan officials or Tokyo officials, Olympic officials have said they can't put it off yet again another year.
No.
Because it's costly to do that. I mean, they already put it off a year, and then to have to put off yet again for another year, it costs. I mean, it costs a lot of money anyway to put the Olympics on. I mean, it's millions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars for a city to do it. That's why not that many cities are bidding for it anymore. But they're saying they're losing money by doing that, and the problem is already they cannot bring in foreign visitors. It's just the Olympians and their coaches and teammates, like all that sort of stuff. So it's not their families and everything else. There's no visitors from outside of Japan allowed in. And then initially it was going to be, they thought they could have fans. And they thought for each venue, it would be like maybe a percentage of what the venue could hold. It wasn't until maybe the last week before the Olympics where they said no, because case counts have like doubled or tripled in the last, week or so. They're up to about 2,000 cases a day. Now, of course, I believe that's all of Japan, not just Tokyo.
Yeah.
But, which is still a lot. I mean, it spreads so quickly.
True, that is true.
So they said no spectators at all. So the opening ceremonies, there was no fans, so it was really quiet. It was so weird. It was weird to watch it.
And half the capacity of the team.
And half the capacity, if that. I mean, like just for example, the Canadian team was 370 athletes. There's only about 30 or 40 in attendance. The American team, from what I remember, it's like 601, I think, athletes. I mean, they did actually have quite a few, but it might have been like a mere percentage of that, maybe even 10% or less of that. So I'm not 100% sure how many went, but I mean, it was a massive team. And that's actually through a lot of the teams. Like there was like 200, 300 athletes, but only a very small percentage was allowed to go even in the opening ceremonies. And that was because safety protocols. Now, if you notice, if you've been watching this at all, any of the games that are going on, some events, they are allowed spectators.
Yeah.
If they're outside.
Yeah.
Like the road races, the men's and women's road races. Like they people are lining up the streets and stuff like that. But like beach volleyball, it's empty, like all of this kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. But it's funny, if you watch the ceremony, even the commentators were saying this. If you listen really carefully, you hear the protesters outside. They're pretty loud.
Yeah.
And they've been protesting this up until the day, even now I believe they're still protesting it, that, I mean, it's going now. So, so like I was saying, now, Canada, most of the athletes are vaccinated. I'm not sure if they all are, but I think most of them are. I'm not sure about the American team. It's probably the same thing. It's just the other teams that not, and they were talking about this too, the commentators. The problem is Japan is very few are fully vaccinated in the entire country.
Yes,
I think it's something like 4%. It's not very much.
Which is shocking.
Which is shocking for a country like Japan, because they aren't like a poor country like some in Africa or some in Asia or Southeast Asia even, which are not extraordinarily rich countries. So it makes sense that they'd be behind their vaccinations.
Of course.
Because a lot of them are having to rely on the COVAX, which is the richer countries donating money or vaccines to pay for vaccines for the poorer countries. Well, Japan's not a poor country.
No,
and they're also very technologically advanced country.
Course.
So I find it funny that they're not as vaccinated as other countries are. So they don't tend to, like some Western countries who have a little bit more distrust of their government or distrust of some scientists.
Yeah.
They seem to believe more of what their scientists and their politicians tell them, you know.
Of course.
And of course, like both China and Japan, and that do tend to wear masks.
It's part of the culture.
It's their culture, but it's also like they have a lot of pollution just because of the size of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already second kind of nature to a lot of them. So
of course,
it's not like it's new. So you find it shocking how very few of them have been actually fully vaccinated. So I can see where the concern's coming from.
Okay.
You're bringing thousands of athletes in, as well as their coaches, as well as mentors and team managers and stuff like that, equipment people, into a country that's not well vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the richer countries are pretty well vaccinated, but not all of them are. This actually has a heavy African contingency from a lot of African countries. Now, I know there's a lot of African countries that are not fully vaccinated. They're poor countries, you know, so I can see why the people are worried about it.
Okay.
I also kind of see where they're coming from. You can't keep putting it off. I mean, now it's a countdown to 3 years to Paris.
Yeah.
This is the next Summer Olympics, and the next Winter Olympics is in about 6-7 months. They're usually 2 years apart.
And now they're like bang.
Now it's less than a year apart between the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics, which is in Beijing, which is a whole other issue, which they're also talking about whether they should even be held in Beijing, but the Winter Olympics. But so I can see if they put it off yet again, now you're only 2 years out from the next Summer Olympics.
Of course, yeah.
And you have to think these athletes need that time to
train
for it, to train for it, and to qualify. And it takes 4 years for, you know, even to the athletes really to get prepared. So it's almost like a double-edged sword. Should they? Because admittedly, it is a safety issue. Yeah. It's a health issue for the country. Mm-hmm. And plus, they can also all the athletes can take it home to their own countries. You know, if any, I mean, there's already been 100 and some odd people who just in the Olympic Village that have gotten COVID. I don't know how many athletes. I think 4. Not as many athletes, but I guess it's the workers and volunteers, like staff, mostly who have. Okay. So, I mean, their fears aren't necessarily unfounded. No. But it's true. I mean, what do? You can't keep putting it off.
No, you can't.
You're going to have the Olympics in the same year Paris is having it. So what do you do then?
Okay.
What do you think? Like, do you think they should have gone ahead with this, or do you think they should have waited yet another year?
Well, let me give you a little juxtaposition.
Okay.
Japan had their July sumo tournament.
Right.
Outside of Tokyo, because Tokyo was
at the Olympics.
Had the Olympics being
right.
Going on there.
Supposed to be in Tokyo.
And so it was, the tournament would have been in Tokyo in July.
Right.
But they were in Nagoya. They were at 25% capacity.
Right.
In the arenas. But they had no cheering.
Had to be quiet.
Had to be quiet.
It's actually the same with the Olympics. If there is spectators allowed, they're not allowed to yell or cheer.
So in the length of time from the end of the July sumo tournament to where
the Olympics,
very
quick, a couple weeks at that.
Maybe a week and a half.
Yeah, maybe a week and a half.
Because I believe it was the 15th of July that the sumo tournament ended.
Right.
And
the Olympics just started on Friday. Actually, they've been competing, like doing qualifying rounds and stuff before, which they usually do.
Yeah.
Before even the opening ceremonies. So I mean, the athletes actually were sure to arrive a couple weeks ago.
So they would have been here
already.
They would have been here during the sumo tournament.
That's why they had to move it.
So I think if you were going to allow capacity in the
But see, the sumo is Japanese citizens.
Yes.
It's not necessarily like foreign visitors coming there.
But you could still do it to capacity. Like, say the arena holds so many thousand.
Oh yeah, I mean there. I'm not sure about each individual, but the where the ceremony, it's a massive stadium. It's huge.
And they spent a lot of money building the stadium.
And then to have nobody there was kind of anticlimactic. I mean, they're not going to make back half of what they paid because they couldn't have the people come.
Now, on one hand, I do agree, like, you can't keep pushing the brake on it, because then it's fiscally...
It's even worse.
It's even worse.
You have to keep the stadiums and venues up.
Of course.
I mean, it's already been a year out.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you push it another year, well, you're going to have to maintain these facilities for yet another year.
Yeah.
So it ends up being very costly.
Oh, of course.
For a city. I mean, eventually they're going to have to use these facilities for something
else down the road.
Eventually, but once the Olympics are done. I mean, the Olympics are only 2 weeks, and that's actually one of the reasons a lot of countries are not necessarily wanting to bid on them anymore, because they're multi-million dollars to house these athletes
for such a short period of time.
The facilities for 2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, then what do you do with them? Now, I mean, I think it was Rio, I believe, or maybe Sochi, had an interesting idea that they can actually recycle these buildings. They could take them down, which is bizarre, and they could put them somewhere else, so they can use them for something else. I think it might have been Rio who had that idea.
I think what Rio did was they turned the Olympic Village into homes.
I know that's what Vancouver did. Vancouver actually turned the Athletes Village into condos.
I think, I'm of two minds of it as well. Financially, you can't keep putting it up because the country's already in the red to finance this, to build the venues, to produce the athlete village, and then you have to pay the staff, volunteers, everyone to run this monolith of a game.
It's a massive undertaking.
It's financially, it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And then to put the brakes on it again.
Because then now you're only 2 years out from the Paris Olympics.
And the country's already in the red with it to get to this point.
Yeah.
You've stopped it. They've had to still pump money into these facilities to maintain them. Yep. Now the call to stop it again. The countries can't keep taking that financial hit.
Right.
On the health spectrum, I agree with, we've suddenly had a massive jump. Let's...
and I mean, if you think about it, Japan's done very well with COVID. I mean, it's one of the countries that have actually done very well.
Remarkably well, actually.
I mean, for the size of the population of the country, they've done very well, like keeping the numbers pretty low.
And they've had, I believe it was a fourth wave.
I think that's what this is, isn't it? Or is this their fifth wave?
I think this might be their fifth.
I mean, it's such as their waves are. I mean, like, if you compare their waves to, like, what's happening in England and what's happening in Europe and what happened in India and, stuff like that. I mean, their waves are pretty relatively small compared to other countries, even of similar kind of size. I mean, like, I guess the closest that would have had like maybe a third or fourth wave would have been India, but I mean it's much bigger population of India than even Japan has. I mean, Japan has something like 100 some odd million, maybe, or a little bit more than that.
I believe so, yeah.
And you're talking 130 or 140 billion in India. So I mean, I guess that's really your kind of closest comparison to size of how many waves, because yes, I know the States has had really bad numbers, but I don't think they've had a fourth wave, not yet, and hopefully they won't. They've had about 3 waves, I believe. North America has done a little better that way, because then say Europe and maybe Asia has,
Of course.
with how many waves we've had, kind of thing. We've had maybe 3,
Yeah.
and they're trying to prevent a fourth. But
Yes.
you know, but the difference being North America is better vaccinated. At
That's
this
true.
point, Canada is 80% one dose and 60% fully dosed. So
Mhm.
it's actually surpassed quite a few
Our-
other countries who used to be way ahead of us.
Of course.
Now the States, I think, is sitting at 60 or 70% one dose,
Mhm.
and I think it's 54% 2 doses. Now, I mean, it's we're having the same issue here. It's plateauing a bit because you're getting to the people who either can't get vaccinated or don't want to get vaccinated. So, I mean, that's where, and they expected that. So you're getting to, I think it's in the States about 30 million, which is almost our entire population. About 30 million haven't been any doses at all in the States. And I forget, it's a few million here too, but I guess 80% here, maybe 5 million, 10 million maybe here that haven't had any doses at all. So I guess that's really the thing. I mean, if it was held here in the States, you might not worry about it as much because more of the population's vaccinated.
Yeah, there might be not so much nervous wringing of hands and
probably wouldn't be. I mean, I know our borders are still closed.
Mm-hmm.
However, Canada's borders are eventually starting to open. Like our borders to the Americans first. So our borders, I think they open to fully vaccinated Americans. I think it's the 9th of August.
Yes.
And then it's September that'll be open to, I think it's Europe or the rest of the world. To only fully vaccinated. But where I know the States is actually, I don't blame them because they are seeing a bit of an uptick in some of their states of cases that they're not reciprocating. They're keeping the border closed.
Which
so
makes
at
sense.
least till August 21st,
Yeah.
when it would have actually rolled over again anyway. So which they just decided to let it open earlier to fully vaccinated. But I also heard it because with states, it's because they want to be able to open both borders with Mexico and Canada at the same time. And right now, Mexico's having, I guess, a bit of an issue either with the refugees. We'll have to look into that, maybe do another talk about that. But and it sounds like they want to open both borders at the same time. So they don't want like Canada and the States to be able to travel between each other, not Mexico. So. But we'll see. Like, that's what we're hearing. But I think, like we're saying, it may not have been such a problem if it was in, like, say, here or England, like it was in London in 2012 or somewhere like that. But because Japan is so far behind in their fully dosed, I understand why the population is a little bit not really wanting that many people here. You know, not everybody. A lot of them are actually very happy and excited to see it. You know, because again, they're going through a bit of they did lockdowns, they open up, lockdowns open up, but they've mostly been open most of the year.
Yes.
Except for periodic lockdowns.
Shutdowns.
But now their wave's a little higher, and that's because of the Delta variant.
I also, one thing I also think too is like the athletes.
Right.
This is a big thing, like to qualify and to be considered an Olympian to go and represent your country.
Well, and see, some of them, this will be their last chance to go. I mean, some of them are in their 30s.
Yep.
There's actually, I cannot think of her name, she's a famous gymnast. She's 46. And so this could potentially be her last Olympics. She's actually competing for Uzbekistan, I believe. And I mean, this is probably going to be her last Olympics. She's 46 years old. So I mean, like, she has done it before, but you know, some of them it's their first Olympics and maybe their only Olympics.
Yes.
So to wait another 3 years or another year, they may not be able to come. You know.
And I think the problem is, how do you juggle all those variables? You know. You have to take your city and your country's safety concerns into consideration.
Right.
That's just sound politics. That's sound governing.
Yeah.
But also financially, you have to take your city into consideration,
So they put a lot of money into this.
because like this is such a big venture that cities will go into the red
Oh, for years.
for years
afterwards. Yeah.
afterwards, and they already had one stall out to get to this, and then to go ahead and ask them to stop this again
Another year.
another year.
Not even months, a year.
Who's to know if Tokyo can bounce back from that?
It's a lot to expect in
It's
the
a-
country and the city, really.
Um,
I mean, to have everything in place, because in order to cancel it less than a week out,
yeah,
you know, you've already got your volunteers, they're there, your athletes are there, you've got like your the food that they're serving, cooks and
Mhm.
everybody else, and everything's ready, and then to say, oh no, our
That's
fees are
it.
too high, go home. I mean, that you're massively losing money by doing that. So I mean, you don't want to bankrupt your city either.
no, and you also
You
have
know.
to think the expenditure these teams
A cost to get there.
get there.
So a lot of these athletes are not necessarily rich, and they're actually getting there on support of organizations, their
Mhm.
hometowns, and so, especially the poorer countries. So even in the States, even here in Canada, I mean, some of these athletes are actually sponsored by their towns.
Yeah.
You know, to even compete at this level.
Mhm.
So of course, it's these individual countries also putting in
Yeah.
so much money to get them there. So
I guess
you
it's
know.
I guess you know it's that damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of scenario.
which is why I think they're trying to do such a strong protocol
Hmm.
that there are no fans at most of the venues. Most of the indoor ones, you won't see any spectators. Like we said with the road races and stuff, you see them lined up
Of course.
outside, and most of them are masked. So
Yeah.
because again, it's
Part of the
their
protocol.
culture, like they're used to doing it. So
Yeah.
usually, but you know, and they're excited to see that because again, like the rest of us, we've been locked down a lot. But yeah, like it's I guess it's a fun thing, it's a good thing to look at, but then you're also kind of thinking, is this going to be a super spreader?
Well,
event?
yeah, that's
You
it.
know, because you've got tens of thousands of people here, and I know that. And what they say, they talked about this in the opening ceremonies. The actual athletes were not allowed to move into the athlete village until the week they were to perform or
Mhm.
to compete,
So they're billeted in other communities.
which is interesting. Like, 'cause you would think, well, how's that safe for the other communities? Wouldn't it have been better to just put them into the Olympic Village and then, kind of like the NHL did, put them in a bubble and then they only go
Yeah.
place to place? Now, that's what they are doing once they hit the Olympic Village.
Yeah.
They go from the Olympic Village to their venue and then back again. They're not allowed to go through the city. They're not allowed to tour it like they normally would be.
Yeah,
They're
like
not allowed
every
to
other.
do that. But where is the rest of them being housed?
Well, that's it. There's the
Are they in
question.
hotels outside the city? Are they in homes? Where are they
See that?
then?
Then you can kind of say, okay, well,
Don't you think that would be dangerous?
that's this is what I would be.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, you're putting athletes in like villages or small towns
Or
that
somewhere else in the city?
somewhere else in the city
Yeah.
where you have no idea what the protocols are. Are the people vaccinated or not?
Well, if you're talking about the whole country, it's not that many. You can pretty much guarantee they're not vaccinated, or at least not fully.
Mm-hmm.
But are they still in Tokyo? Are they in hotels in Tokyo? Are they outside of Tokyo, like in the suburbs? Where are they? You know, I mean, it just makes sense.
It just seemed like a weird
way
way to do it.
Like, why would you house them and then only bring them to the Olympic Village the week that they're going to perform, or wherever they're staying? Like, you know, I know, like, as in most, it's not always just in Tokyo. It's scattered around.
Of course.
But like, same with the Winter Olympics. But to me, it didn't make any sense
No.
to do that.
And it still doesn't make sense.
You know? But that's what the commentators explained. But
Yeah.
that's what they were doing. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to do that.
No.
You know. it would make more sense to have them where they're going to compete.
Of
So if
course.
they're in Tokyo, keep them in the Olympic Village. If it's outside of Tokyo, you keep them there. And yes, like make sure that they can't go
They can't
explore.
crisscross, yeah.
But why would you not have them in the Olympic Village otherwise? I think it's because there's so many of them. There's thousands
Oh.
of athletes. So I guess it's to try not to have them all together.
Yeah.
But is that better than them being in a hotel here and then a hotel here and a hotel here and then making sure they stay in that hotel
See,
and not go anywhere else?
it brings up that damned
You
if
know?
you do, damned if you don't
Like,
kind of.
That's what's, I don't know, it doesn't make any
Bizarre.
sense to do that.
There's a question, okay, we'll pose to you guys. Do you think this is the right way that the Japanese Olympic Committee did this by having them build it elsewhere
And then
until
only, yeah,
until they had to actually
go
and compete to then move into the Olympic Village? Let us know in the comments section below. What do you guys think? Because
Or what do you think? Do you think they should help the Olympics? Or do you think it should have been held up yet again another year? I know a lot of people do, especially a lot of the Japanese do.
and that's it.
I get it. I can understand why they would be nervous.
Of course,
about
of course,
it.
it
I
makes
get
sense.
it because like they're seeing thousands a day
Yeah.
in cases, which they never really saw before. So I mean, it's somewhat new. They were actually, like you said, one of the countries that did well
Remarkably well, yeah.
prior to this. Like Thailand did, South Korea did. They did very well at first, but now it's with this new variant, the Delta variant. They seem to be, and again, because they're not as fully vaccinated as other countries, they're seeing bigger waves now than maybe other countries are, just because of the vaccination rate. So, and I guess they're nervous about it because they've seen what's happened in other countries.
Of course.
You know?
So it's a weird.
It's like you said, it's almost like a double-edged sword. Do you or don't you? In either way, it's going to have consequences.
Yeah, somebody's going to be upset.
I mean, hopefully I know they're worried about it being a super spreader event. Now, hopefully it won't be. They're pretty good at following protocols. Now, if you can get the athletes to follow the same protocols, then maybe they won't necessarily have a problem here, but will they? This is the problem. I mean, some athletes are very young. There's like 15, 16-year-olds here.
These are kids, and you're asking them to really behave and
not go out of the city. I mean, for some, it's their only chance of going to ever get there. For some,
for some to be outside of their home country for the first time, because some countries have really strict travel.
Most of the world still does. Most of the world still has very strict travel
protocols.
Restrictions. I mean, it might not seem like it, but they do. I mean, I know Europe, some countries have loosened up. I think England has. I think France has, and allowing travelers to come there from specific countries. Not all countries. Like we're not on. I think England's got they felt like a color-coded thing.
We're not there yet.
We're not on in either states. We're actually, I think, the amber or the red list. And even though I think we're better vaccinated than they are, and they're not allowing us in. So,
what the heck?
But I think France, we can.
Yeah.
I believe same with states, and other countries as well. But other countries are not actually allowing that still. So, but.
I don't,
for obvious reasons.
Honestly, I don't know what is the best course of action with it.
Well, I guess, it's going on, and I guess all we can really hope for is that this will not become a super spreader event. I mean, if you're talking about a super spreader event, it's a massive super spreader event,
exactly.
and worldwide.
This would drop. Pardon the phrase, but it would drop everyone into crap once again.
Well, considering I know some of the countries don't have huge teams. Some of them don't. A lot of them actually don't. But there are a few that have massive teams there. Like the States does, Canada has a big team, Russia does.
China.
China does. I think Great Britain does. I mean, some of them have like 300, 400,
Huge teams.
Like 600 people.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and I don't know what their vaccination status is. So, I mean, now you're talking about all these people. They're interacting with others from other countries, and then
Yeah.
they're going to go home. So, are they going to bring them home? Are they going to be saved?
That's
I mean, that's going to be remain to be seen when this is pretty much all said and done. And then, of course, as you know, I mean, it's a 2-week incubation period.
Mhm.
So those that might get affected now, by the end of the Olympics, will know they're infected, or they'll go home. You know, so
That's
I
it.
don't know. We can only hope, because there's so many countries, and that's really the big concern, do not have the same kind of vaccination rates. So,
Well, exactly.
and that's really the issue.
So, like, guys, let's. Me and Four Towers want to put it out to you, the community out there. What do you guys think? Do you think this is gonna go all kablooey? There's gonna be a super spreader event. Do you think Japan, if they maintain the strict protocol, things will be fine,
And people follow it,
and people follow it, everything's going to be okay?
because they are testing every day.
Mhm.
That's one thing that they are doing. And so far, like I said, you're talking thousands of athletes. So far, I haven't heard like today, but there's been, I think, about 172
72.
so far. Now, they're not all athletes that have gotten it, but there might have been 4 or so athletes. Because remember, a lot of the athletes, some from the bigger countries, have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that can easily change.
Of course.
You know,
Or do you fall in the camp of, let's cancel it? You know, why tempt fate?
too late now.
You know, or are you in the camp? Are you in the camp? Well, you know, like you said, it's too late now. It's on. Let's get through it. Let's get it done. Let's
enjoy it.
enjoy it.
I mean, well, it's supposed to be every 4 years, but now it'll be every 3. Well, just till Paris, but
Well, I guess.
actually we'll have a Winter Olympics in less than a year. That's 6 months time,
Oh,
which you normally don't. Like you'll normally get it, because how they have it now is every 2 years is an Olympics. So you got like, and it's still 4 between each, but you know, because you have so it was 4 years ago Rio, so now you got Tokyo, and then 4 years, well, now 3 years from now Paris, but then Beijing in about 7 months. It would have been almost 2 years.
Yeah.
But
You know, I guess there's no real answer to this question.
no, because like you said, they're almost kind of in between a rock and a hard place either way, kind of thing. They either put it off for safety reasons, and they can lose a lot of money. And you know, and then you're trying to get into a conflict with the Paris Olympics, as well as, well, not really the winter. It doesn't really affect them, but it'll affect everybody getting ready for the Paris Olympics.
Yeah, it'll shorten training times.
It sure does, because they also have other competitions in between.
Yeah.
And you'll notice, like, if you've been paying attention, like a lot with Wimbledon and things like that, there's been a lot of the big names pulling out the big, like Wimbledon and stuff, because it's an Olympic year, and they just didn't have enough time to do both.
Yeah.
So because they were like within a week of each other at the end of Wimbledon and the Olympics.
They made decisions.
They make decisions. They want to go to the Olympics instead, once in a 4-year thing. So
Of
I mean,
course.
now you're actually they'll end up, if they pushed it another year, you'd have the same issue,
Yeah.
because you only have 2-year lead time now to Paris, and you know, and a lot of times it's just too close. So that's why they also said it needs to go ahead. It can't just keep being pushed out,
Of course.
because then you'd be in the same year eventually as Paris. So you know.
I want to thank you for
Having a good discussion about it.
having this good discussion, and thank you guys for tuning in. It's one of those things that, you know,
It's difficult. I mean, really, what do you do?
exactly.
You
It's
know?
one of those what do you do situations. We hope that the Tokyo Olympic Committee does stay true to what the protocols they have in place.
And the athletes do, and everybody else
Athletes do. That the remainder of the games go off without a hitch. There isn't any increase in cases within the Olympic community.
and they don't cause it in the general population. Because remember, I mean, you guys burn it. Even if you're fully vaccinated, you still carry it. So to those that are not vaccinated, and I think that's also part of the worry that yes, even though they're fully vaccinated coming in, most of Japan is still not.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they could be carrying it to them.
Take it
So I
elsewhere.
think that's also part of the fear.
Mhm.
Is that, I mean, the athletes should be fine. It's just, and plus, you know, it's just they may bring it to people who may not be fine. So
That's
I
it.
think that's also part of the worry. But
So-
hopefully that will not be the case.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to tonight's show. Thank you for being my amazing co-host for another episode.
Thank you very much.
Guys, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell. It'll let you know every time me and this lovely lady will go live. To our Olympic athletes and the Olympians from around the world, stay safe, compete strong, and good luck to all of you. And thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for being here. And we will see you guys next week. Be safe.
Take care, guys. Bye.